I will inherit the $330,000 inheritance in this house since I'm his wife. I won't give it to you." On the day of my son's funeral, his wife boldly stated this in front of all the relatives. The relatives, seated and listening to her story, were taken aback by her words. They nearly laughed because the eldest son's wife seemed to know nothing. She wasn't even aware of the double life led by her son, who was a prominent lawyer. Everyone felt pity for the son who had married such a woman. The relatives were taken aback by her audacious words. Yet she seemed oblivious to their shocked expressions and muttered, "Now I'll be rich." She's mistaken if she thinks everything will go her way that easily. Struggles are a part of everything. I need to teach her that, as a mother-in-law, and as the mother of her son. My name is Julia, a housewife in my 60s. I've been living alone since my husband passed away. Together we used to run a company. While we were both busy with work, our son, whom we nurtured with care, started living on his own a few years ago after getting married. Living alone after several decades turned out to be lonelier and harder than I thought. What kept me going was the frequent visits from my son and his wife. When they had a child, they brought the baby over to show me. They often visit, so my grandchild has grown fond of me. I looked forward to giving my grandchild a Christmas gift every year, loving him dearly. After my husband's death, my son and his wife considerately moved closer to my place. I told them they didn't need to go that far, but when my son said, "Mom, you're getting older. We're worried. Dad would be worried about you too," I felt it would be ungracious not to accept their kindness, so I ended up relying on my son and his wife. To be honest, Emily, my son's wife, didn't seem too pleased with the current situation. However, even though I'm her mother-in-law, I felt it was not my place to interfere in their relationship. I feared it might make things worse, so I kept silent. In retrospect, I think my lukewarm response wasn't the best approach. "Juliet, don't you think it's time to stop? Do you enjoy monopolizing someone else's husband? Don't you feel guilty at all?" One day while I was relaxing at home, I got a message from Emily saying she has something to discuss. Shortly after, she came to visit. I had previously asked her not to drop by without notice, but Emily countered with, "If I try to schedule, you'll decline, won't you?" She never informed me in advance. When she suddenly visited like this, she would unleash harsh words that she wouldn't normally say. There was a reason why Emily would come without making an appointment and alone. In front of my son and grandchild, she plays the part of a good mother who gets along with her mother-in-law. In front of them, Emily is a very kind person. If I need help with something, she actively assists. She's concerned about my health and even shares the food she makes with me. However, that's just her outward demeanor. Inside, Emily's true feelings are so dark, she wouldn't dare show them. Whether she generally dislikes me or not, she has often made hurtful remarks like, "Don't be so bossy when you can't do anything," or "Don't deceive my husband." Even relying on my son's kindness seemed to irritate Emily, as she once lashed out, saying, "You're so bad at reading between the lines." Emily, if something bothers you so much, you can say it right there and then. If I know you dislike it, I'll try to avoid doing it. Do you really not understand how people feel? In front of my husband and child, do you think I can say those things? Can't you at least sense when something might be unpleasant for others? I'm not a mind reader, you know. I try my best not to upset Emily. When accepting kindness from my son, I always consider whether it might upset Emily. Despite my careful considerations, my every move seems to annoy her. Ever since my son and Emily moved closer, the frequency of her visits to complain about me has markedly increased. It seems she even resents the fact they moved near my home. When she said, "Even though we finally had a child, you just keep getting in our way," I was deeply shocked. If she's so bothered, she should just clearly say so. If she did, neither I nor my son would force anything on her. Yet instead of doing so, she pretends to be fine in the moment, saying, "I think it's okay," only to complain to me afterwards. This way, she probably doesn't feel good herself either. I wish she'd choose an easier way to live. However, my feelings never seemed to reach her. My relationship with Emily is terrible. Still, as a mother-in-law, I constantly wondered if I couldn't find some way to bridge the gap. One day, a deeply shocking event occurred. I heard that my son had fallen ill. Informed by Emily, I rushed to the hospital where he was to be admitted. There a man introduced himself as the attending physician and explained my son's condition in detail. My son's illness was quite severe. While it wasn't untreatable, it wasn't a disease you could confidently say was non-life threatening either. Undoubtedly, the treatment costs would be substantial. Upon hearing this, Emily turned pale. "Is there no cure for this illness? We need him to work. He needs to recover quickly and get back to work." "Emily, please." Even in such a situation, Emily was preoccupied with my son's job. She always seemed very concerned about his work. My son runs a small law firm as a lawyer. Initially, the firm had few cases and employees, but he steadily built its reputation, and now the business has grown considerably. Emily always boasted about my son during family gatherings, even though it wasn't about her. For her, my son's profession was a tool to one-up others in society. That's probably why she's so anxious, knowing that our son won't be able to work. "Emily, it's not the time to be worried about his job. Let's be patient. He will recover in time." "It's easy for you to say. What value does such a person have without a job? How will we manage the finances? I need my husband to earn more for us." "Emily, enough is enough. What do you think of our son? He's the one suffering from the illness. Can't you even wish for him to rest?" Unable to bear her utter selfishness, I snapped at her, only to be calmed by the doctor saying, No, let's all calm down." How can one stay calm knowing their son is in such distress? Moreover, having to listen to her cruel words made it even more unbearable. It would be strange if I kept quiet. From that day on, our son was hospitalized for a while. I visited him every day, but Emily never once came to visit him. Undoubtedly, our son felt lonely not being able to see her or his child. I told her to visit him, but my words fell on deaf ears. For a long time our son endured the treatments. He wanted to recover and see his family again, and I continuously supported him. But despite all the treatments, a few months after his diagnosis, we lost him. The days that followed felt hectic, yet seemed to drag on forever. I was burned out after our son's death. My sister helped with the funeral preparations, and somehow we managed to conduct it. There was a photo of our son with his bright smile at the ceremony. A smile I'd never see again. The indescribable sense of loss was so profound. I couldn't even shed a tear. On the day of the funeral, I was greeted by his subordinates. Our son was truly kind and caring, and it seemed he was deeply loved by those he worked with. Countless people were crying, more than I could count on my fingers. So many mourned the loss of my son. Once the funeral settled down, Emily approached me, saying, "Julia, what's wrong? It must be tough for you too. Don't push yourself." "No, I just wanted to talk." "Talk? What about?" "It's about my husband's inheritance." "Inheritance?" Emily seemed eager to say something. However, discussing inheritance during a funeral isn't appropriate. As I tried to listen, seemingly impatient, she blurted out, "I'll inherit the $330,000 and this house, being his wife. I won't hand any of it over to you." "What?" Hearing her voice, the attendees turned their attention to us. Whispers filled the air, making the atmosphere even more uncomfortable. "You wanted the inheritance, didn't you? Unfortunately, it's all mine," she proudly declared, seemingly oblivious to the surroundings. Unbelievable. On the day of my dear son's funeral, to be told such things. I couldn't lift my head, feeling so dejected. But then a helping hand was extended to me. "Excuse me, Emily, do you even know what you're talking about?" The one addressing her was a woman in charge of accounting at my son's law firm. Several of my son's colleagues also gathered around, chuckling at her. What are you talking about? Did I say something wrong? Wrong? Everything you said is laughable, don't you think? She turned to me with a smirk. Emily, not understanding why she was being mocked, looked increasingly upset. Julia, are you still hiding something? Hiding things even now? You're truly spiteful. I wasn't hiding anything. I assumed you already knew. So, what are you talking about? Why is everyone laughing? I don't understand. It seemed that Emily was genuinely unaware of the situation. Despite her confusion, my son's colleagues only continued to chuckle, offering no answers. Why don't you just tell her? She really looks pitiful, you know. The female colleague commented with a laugh. Indeed, it felt wrong for her to be in the dark about such a crucial matter. Thus, I decided to reveal the truth that she was oblivious to. The truth is, our son had debt. Debt? Why, I heard nothing about this. As I suspected, she was completely unaware of it. In reality, when our son established his law firm, my husband and I lent him approximately $400,000. Even though we've since retired, the business we used to run was thriving, and we had sufficient funds. If we knew our son was facing financial difficulties, we wouldn't hesitate to help him. He promised to repay us over time. Although he managed to pay back $130,000, a remaining $270,000 is yet to be settled. Hearing this, the color drained from her face. She clearly hadn't expected such significant debt from her husband. You did say earlier that you'd inherit all of our son's assets, didn't you? I asked to confirm. However, she hesitated to nod in agreement. I don't need the inheritance. It's fine, please. She desperately refuted, but since everyone present heard her initial claim of inheriting everything, there was no escaping the truth. If you're saying you'll inherit our son's assets, you'll also inherit his debt, right? What? I can't afford to pay $270,000. Please, aren't we family? Families help each other out in times of crisis, don't they? Her demeanor shifted entirely, and she began to grovel. Up until now, she had done nothing but belittle me. Moreover, she treated our son's matters dismissively. Perhaps due to the accumulated anger I felt, I couldn't bring myself to forgive Emily any longer. Despite Emily being the one who hasn't treated us as family, I couldn't help but feel offended when she suddenly put on a facade of familial ties. I'm sorry, but everyone here heard you say that you would inherit the estate. Everyone here will be a witness. Why? Really, sometimes you just don't think things through. Shouldn't you be more discerning about who you should treat respectfully? After all, you're an adult too. Please don't say that. It's between me and you, right? Please help me. If things continue like this, Emily's face was more distorted than I had ever seen before. She probably feared what the future held for her. However, the people present backed me up. It's unbelievable that she would say something like that after her husband passed away. From somewhere in the hall, that voice echoed. Then one after the other, voices criticizing Emily began to emerge. Don't forgive such a cold-blooded beast. I feel so sorry for her late husband. The entire hall was filled with insults directed at Emily. She began to tremble, probably not expecting to face such backlash. Perhaps she was convinced that her side of the story was justified and that she shouldn't be blamed. Why is everyone siding with Julia? I've tried my best too. I am his wife. Why does Julia get all the good things? Emily shouted angrily and crouched down. No one reached out to her. Take a moment and reflect on yourself. Not mourning someone's death, only thinking about money, and not caring about others' feelings. People aren't foolish enough to support someone like that. I felt so out of place that I had to leave. One of my son's colleagues followed me out of concern, but I felt relieved. Later on, Emily did inherit my son's estate, as she declared. However, there was hardly any inheritance left, and most of it was debt. She had to work tirelessly to pay it back. As Emily had no time to care for her child, my grandchild was left in our care. Please, Julia, forgive my debt. Time and again, Emily would come to our house, begging me in desperation. However, I steadfastly refused. I couldn't forget what happened back then. I had lost my dear son, and yet Emily behaved in such a way. Even when my son was ill, she never visited him once in the hospital. He must have felt lonely, not being able to see his wife or child. With that in mind, I just couldn't bring myself to forgive Emily. As time passed, my grandchild spent more time with me and, before I knew it, became more attached to me than to Emily, his biological mother. He began saying he wanted to be with Grandma, no matter what we did. I remember how shocked Emily was by this. While I think I am the worst, this was my small act of revenge. She took my son from me, so I took something back. Although my days feel empty, they are somewhat fulfilling. My grandson has started elementary school, and when he needs something, we often go shopping together. I have no intention of forgiving Emily's debt, but I don't mind spending money for my grandson. Fortunately, the profits from when I ran a company are still plentiful. I intend to use this money solely for my grandson's benefit. My greatest hope is that when it's my turn to follow my husband and son to heaven, my beloved grandson will be there to see me off. Even a parasite would thrive in this facility. I understand. Just stay out of it from now on, please. I am Farissa. Before I realized it, I turned 60. I have a family, my husband Brian, and his daughter from a previous marriage, Maria. As you can infer, this is my first marriage, but Brian's second. We've been married for 30 years now. Initially, my relationship with Maria was smooth, but as she entered her teenage years, she began to resent me. Brian always protected me from Maria's attitudes. But 3 years ago, Maria got married and moved out, and since then, Brian and I have been living peacefully. Hey, Theresa, I'm getting a divorce. Maria suddenly appeared at our house with a large suitcase, plopped down on the sofa, and announced that, "What? Why?" When I asked, Maria responded with a languid tone, "Does it matter? It has nothing to do with you, right? Anyway, my room is still the same, right? Yes, it is. But are you moving back here?" Seemingly offended by my question, Maria glared at me. "What? Can't I come back? This is my home." She still clearly has issues with me. Her long-standing queen-like attitude apparently hasn't changed. "I didn't say you couldn't. When are you coming back? Today?" Maria responded even before I finished my question. "But coming back today? That's too sudden." "Today? Does your father know?" "I wasn't informed. I just told Dad. I don't owe you any explanations, do I? We're strangers, after all." Ever since her teenage years, Maria frequently told me, "We're strangers, after all." At first, these words pierced my heart, but over time, they lost their sting. "All right then, I'll go clean up your room." Holding a vacuum cleaner, I headed to Maria's room. Maria made no move to help, instead raiding the fridge. When I finished cleaning and returned to the living room, Maria's belongings were scattered everywhere. I'd always known she wasn't the tidiest person, but I thought she'd have learned to handle household chores after becoming a full-time homemaker upon marriage. It seems she hasn't changed. In the midst of the awkward atmosphere, as I was preparing dinner, Brian came home. "I'm home, Dad." Seeing her father, Maria shouted excitedly, "Oh, Maria, it was a surprise to see you back all of a sudden." "It's a surprise. Now that I'm back, you won't be lonely, right, I suppose?" Brian welcomed Maria back warmly, even though her sudden divorce and return seemed to have caught him off guard. I could tell he was concerned about the dynamics between Maria and me. While Brian and Maria chatted, I laid out dinner on the table. "Dinner's ready." Upon hearing my voice, Brian turned around, mentioned he would change, and headed to our bedroom. As soon as he left, Maria's expression turned sour, frustrated. She ran her fingers through her hair and began to speak to me. "You know, it's not cool to interrupt a parent-child conversation, Right, we were having a good time, and then you ruined it, Theresa. Jealous much at your age, it's quite pathetic. I ignored Maria's words and took a seat. Seeing me, Maria clicked her tongue in annoyance and sat down as well. After a while, my husband returned in his casual clothes, and once everyone was seated, we began to eat. Oh my gosh, Teresa's cooking is as bad as ever. Dad, if you keep eating this, it's gonna ruin your health. I had guessed she'd say that. I didn't expect Maria to quietly eat the meal I prepared. When I looked at my husband, he was giving a wry smile. You're still on about that. Dad loves Mom's cooking. But Dad, aren't you brainwashed? It's inedible no matter how you look at it, Maria exclaimed, but she continued to eat voraciously. I decided to ignore her, and kept silent. My husband always looked out for me, so I made sure to eat with a smile, not wanting to worry him. Maria was glaring at me the entire time. Starting the next day, Maria's demands increased exponentially. She threw away the bed sheets because they weren't cute enough, demanded that I buy her favorite alcohol if it wasn't in the fridge, and even wanted an allowance until she found a job. She was doing whatever she pleased. Whenever I objected or interjected, she would lash out and hurl abusive words. My husband tried to admonish her, but Maria didn't listen. Honestly, even primary school kids nowadays don't act this entitled. Teresa, if you're going out, can you leave some money? As I was getting ready to leave home, Maria approached me. What money? I've booked a nail salon appointment today, so money for that and money for going to a steakhouse for lunch. While Maria said she was looking for a job, there was no sign of her making any effort. She claimed she was visiting job agencies whenever she went out. I didn't believe her. I've prepared lunch, so please eat that. Your nail appointments are your personal indulgence. You should pay for them yourself, right? She became grumpy upon hearing this. Why won't you listen to me? For starters, the only reason you can live comfortably is because of Dad. It's Dad's money. You're in no position to act all high and mighty about money. With that, Maria forcefully took my wallet, grabbed a few bills, and stormed out. Maria, wait. Of course, she didn't listen, and just walked away. Enough is enough, I muttered while standing at the entrance. Later, when I returned from shopping and was preparing dinner, my husband came home before Maria. I'm back. Where's Maria? She hasn't returned yet. I see, Teresa, it must be tough while I'm at work, right? Are you okay? He looked genuinely concerned. I didn't want to upset him, so I assured him I was fine. If anything happens, tell me immediately. Maria is old enough. I'm thinking of suggesting she live on her own once she finds a job. Hearing this, I felt a bit relieved, thinking that our cohabitation wouldn't last forever. I had been living a peaceful life since Maria got married and moved out, but now I was worried about her again. That sounds good. Seeing me smile, my husband also smiled and lightly patted my shoulder. Yet, even after 2 weeks, Maria never seemed to attend any job interviews. Instead, she kept asking for money, saying, I'm looking for a job. There's no job search that requires so much money. She would ask for several $100s at once, timing her requests for when my husband was at work. I can't give you any more money. Upon hearing this, Maria furrowed her brows and began her theatrics. Isn't that cruel to me who's heartbroken from my divorce? I'm trying to find a job to contribute to the household, and you're getting in my way. Teresa, you're so mean. With tears, Maria flung the door open and left the house. Is that how someone heartbroken acts? It's obvious she's not looking for a job. It made me curious about why Maria got divorced. Maria never talked about the reason for her divorce. I hadn't cared about the reason before because I was turned off by her attitude and temperament. Even when I asked my husband, he said he didn't know why they divorced. This makes me even more curious. My husband and I contacted a friend who works at a detective agency to find out the reason for Maria's divorce. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a friend. My husband was at work, so I went to the agency alone. What I heard there was shocking. I'm home. I'm so hungry. Make my dinner quickly. Maria, who came home past midnight, was drunk and said that to me. He was trying to sleep. It felt like an order. Just eat whatever's in the fridge. I'm going to sleep. What? I'm tired. Hurry up. When I ignored her demands, Maria grabbed my arm. Don't get cocky. Make the meal now. My husband woke up, surprised by Maria's shouting, and stopped her when she tried to be violent with me. Stop it. What are you thinking? If you're going to act like this, then leave. When my husband yelled at Maria, she started complaining to him too. What's your problem, you old geezer? Aren't you grateful that I came home? Are you too crazy or something? A heated argument ensued, but I calmed my husband down, and Maria ran into her room. A week passed, and things hadn't changed. I was mentally and physically drained. That's when Maria said something outrageous. Oh, by the way, my boyfriend will be living here with me starting next week. I was taken aback by that statement. What did you just say? Like I said, my boyfriend will be living here from next week. She casually answered while playing with her phone. My husband's face turned livid. That's not happening. If you want to live together, find a job and move in together. What? Are you misunderstanding something? I'm not asking for permission. It's already decided. It's my house, so I can do whatever I want, right as expected. She didn't listen to my opinion. I won't allow that. Although my husband yelled at Maria, she ignored him. Actually, why don't you leave, Theresa? When I looked at Maria after hearing that, she was smirking at me. What do you mean? Exactly what I said. Have you gone deaf from old age? The words Maria threw at me were full of spite. Enough is enough. What do you think of Mom? She's the one who raised you from when you were little. My husband tried to defend me, but Maria didn't get it. Just then, Maria's phone rang. She checked it, smirked, and went back to her room. What is she thinking? Theresa, I'm sorry. Seeing my husband upset hurt me. I took his hand and smiled. It's okay. The next day, since my husband had the day off, we decided to go on a day trip to clear our heads. We hadn't had any refreshing time since Maria came back home, so I suggested that we fully enjoy this chance. Our day trip was a lot of fun. We reminisced and spent a peaceful time together. Thanks to our time together, we were able to share smiles by the time we went home. I'm home. Upon arriving and heading to the bedroom to put down our luggage, I noticed mine and my husband's things were missing. As we were in confusion, a voice sounded from behind. Why are you back? Turning around, Maria stood there with her arms crossed, smirking. Where are our belongings? I sold everything to a recycling shop. I felt my body trembling upon hearing those words. What did you say? Like I said, I didn't need them anymore, so I sold them. Didn't make much money, but it's enough for a few days of my allowance. How could you do that? I couldn't help but shout in anger. Who are you yelling at? You should be thanking me. You know, I let you live here comfortably all this while. To think we had such a good time, and come back to this. The results of the prior investigation I conducted on Maria and the memories of living with her flashed through my mind, and I made a decision. Strangely, it made me calm down and regain my composure. Looking at my husband, I could tell he was furious and about to lash out. Leeches like you should go to a facility. Before my husband could react to Maria's final insult, I stopped him and faced Maria. Understood. Please don't involve yourself with us anymore. Theresa, let's go. Brian, it seems we no longer have a place here. As I briskly took action, my husband seemed taken aback, but then replied, all right, and we left the house together. Good riddance, old pests, never come back. Maria's mocking laughter echoed from behind. Theresa, how can I ever apologize? Looking at my trembling husband, I could see he was holding back tears. It's okay, leave it to me. With that, I beat my chest in reassurance and led him somewhere. This place is When I heard the results of the investigation, I prepared for this, just in case. During my laugh, my husband also smiled and said, I can't compete with you. A month later, incessant calls came from Maria. Oh my, she's already calling. My husband suggested not to answer, but I wasn't the type to let things slide. Let me have a little revenge. With a laugh, I said this, and he chuckled in agreement. Hello, what on earth is happening? The voice on the other end was furious. What do you mean? Playing dumb seemed to infuriate Maria even more. Don't play dumb. What's this about renting? Oh, that place is rented. Didn't you know? What? This is Dad's house, isn't it? No, I rented that place under my name. If you want to live there, you have to pay the rent. Maria was at a loss for words. Until now, we lived in a detached rental house and paid rent every month. Maria didn't know about it. Wah, you're joking, right? This is a rental, and it's under your name. Then, pay the rent. She said something incomprehensible. But it wasn't as before. Why should I, not you, talk to Dad? Well, your father has already retired, so that's impossible. Besides, why should I pay if I'm not living there? A scream was then heard from the other end of the call. It sounded so loud it seemed it would hurt just listening. What do you mean he's retired? One can easily imagine Maria being extremely flustered. Your father was nearing his retirement age anyway, so he took this opportunity to leave the company. How could you do this? You know what company my dad worked for, right? It's that big S corporation. Of course I do. I'm the president of that company. Upon hearing this revelation about my identity, Maria was momentarily speechless. Hello, if you're done, I'll hang up. Wha, president? You're the president of that company? No way, right? Maria sounded completely bewildered. My husband and I met at that company where my father was the president at the time. I was working my way up, gaining experience to eventually take over. That's when I met my husband. So, initially, he didn't know I was the president's daughter and only found out when we decided to get married. So, Dad was getting his salary from you, not from me, but from the company. He worked hard. Wait. So you had an income too? Of course, I often worked from home. Are we done? Just as I was about to hang up, Maria's frantic voice could be heard. Wait, then give me some living expenses. Being a president means you're really rich, right? I'm so happy to know you have so much money. Misunderstanding something, she suddenly became joyful. I was so stunned by this unbelievable statement that all I could do was sigh. I could hear a man's voice laughing on the other end of the call. You must be joking. I replied with a stern voice, and Maria sounded genuinely surprised. Huh, why should I give you money for living expenses? There's a limit to making fun. Don't say that, right, Mom? I became even more irritated at the convenient use of Mom to address me. Please don't call me Mom. I don't know anyone who thinks it's okay to hurt someone like you do. Goodbye. Saying that, I hung up. The phone kept ringing every day, and I ignored it, but my husband, annoyed by the persistent calls, eventually answered. Hello. Finally, Dad, we're in trouble. We get rent reminders every day, and our electricity and gas have been shut off. Please, help us. Come back, even if it's just you. My husband was visibly angered by her one-sided and selfish demands. How dare you even say that? Aren't you with your boyfriend now? Both of you can work and earn, can't you? Stop relying on us. But my boyfriend is unemployed. I can't find a job either. We have no income right now. We can only afford one meal a day. That's not my problem. Plus, is it not that you can't find a job, but that you just don't want to work? Maria remained silent when Brian said that. I heard you left your ex-husband without a proper divorce agreement because you didn't want to pay property division. You think that if you work, your wages will be garnished and your whereabouts discovered, right? How do you know all this? It turned out that Brian had recently discovered these details from a detective agency. Maria's divorce was due to her affair, and both she and her lover were married, which is termed a double affair. As a result, Maria fled back to her parents' home. Maria had told her in-laws she had no parents when she got married and married without introducing them. Hence, her ex-husband didn't know where her parents lived. I had it investigated. You wouldn't explain anything. When I found out, I was livid, but Theresa said we should keep quiet. Maybe you'd come clean about it. Wah, Theresa did. I felt it was wrong to press Maria when I found out the truth from the detective agency. If Maria had come to discuss it herself, I thought we could sit down and talk. Though it was a faint hope. You probably don't know, but Theresa has always been there for us. Do you remember your real mother? I don't remember. I thought so. Your mother had an affair just like you, and left me and you behind. Suddenly being a single father, I was in a mess for a while. I had to handle housework, childcare, and work all by myself. Due to this, my job was in jeopardy. But then I met Theresa. She supported me in my job, which saved me from getting fired. Once we started dating, she also took care of you and did the house chores, and I began to recover bit by bit. She even paid for your high school fees and my parents' living expenses because my salary couldn't cover them. As Brian shared this, tears filled his eyes, and his hand trembled. I gently held his hand. If you have money, then you can do all that. Theresa isn't anything special. Hearing all this and you still say that, I'm at a loss for words. I'm cutting ties with you. His voice became stern. His genuine anger was palpable. Whoa, don't say that. Just help me. If you have money, it's fine, right? I don't care. Goodbye. Even as Maria continued to yell, Brian hung up without hesitation. My dear, don't cry. Are you okay? Sorry. Remembering those times. I guess I'm getting old. As they spoke, the phone rang again. Again, maybe I should change the number. Looking at the smartphone, the call wasn't from Maria, but an unknown number. It was an unexpected caller. 3 days later, a call from a public phone came, and it was Maria. You answered. Look, even my phone got cut off. I can't pay the bills. Help me, such a pitiful grown-up. I sighed and responded. Come to the Oceans tomorrow. What? The Oceans, the ultra-luxurious elderly home, the one where you have to pay millions of bucks to get in. You're there. Yes. See you tomorrow. Yes. So we can live there too. Make sure to reserve the best suite for us. We're definitely coming. With that, the call ended. I was beyond angry. It was just sheer disappointment now. We currently live in a place called the Oceans, a very prestigious senior home run by the S Corporation. Moving in requires an initial payment of $1 million, and the monthly fees aren't cheap either. Yet, it's so popular that there's a waiting list. Television crews often come for shoots. The services provided are top-notch within the country. There's a spa, pool, gym, and the entertainment facilities are excellent. The food is also nutritious, and there's a full medical staff, including doctors, nurses, care workers, and clinical psychologists. I had already signed a contract with the Oceans when it was completed, so I could move in at any time. The fact that we were renting a home was because we intended to move here eventually. When Maria returned this time, I prepared everything to ensure we could move in immediately if the worst came to pass. She's coming, isn't she? Yes, she is. I'll contact them then. The next day, while having tea on the terrace with my husband, the concierge informed us of visitors. They are here. We asked the concierge to bring them to the lobby, and we headed there ourselves. When we arrived, a disheveled-looking man and woman with bags were waiting. What are they wearing? Maria, looking unkempt, noticed us and waved. Hey, don't keep me waiting. Show me around. These people are useless, even in this situation. Her condescending attitude remained. I wished she'd used that strong mentality for good. She seemed to have had a dispute with the concierge about entering forcefully, and security was already nearby. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. After I said, the concierge and security retreated. They are hopeless. Ignoring Maria's complaints, we led them to the lobby sofas. Have a seat. We need to talk. Why now? Can't it wait? Then leave. At that, Maria clicked her tongue in annoyance and roughly sat down. So, what's the talk about? Calm down. I'll order some drinks first. Once the drinks arrived, certain individuals came into view. My husband signaled towards them, ready to break the news. Actually, we're not the ones who wanted to talk to you. What? I don't get it. Who then? Those people. When Maria looked, she saw her ex-husband, her boyfriend's ex-wife, and their respective families. Upon seeing the group, Maria screamed. Maria's boyfriend also fell on his backside. It seems her boyfriend was indeed the man she had an affair with, leading to their divorce. After my husband had ended the call with Maria the other day, her ex-husband called. He had hired a private investigator after Maria and her boyfriend disappeared, and they discovered Maria's family home. They also seemed to have found out about my husband and me and contacted us. When asked about Maria's whereabouts, I informed them that I could share the information. However, at home, cameras would show who visited, which might allow for an escape. So I updated them on our situation and suggested, if called, she would definitely come, and security here is top-notch, so chances of escaping are minimal, hence the suggestion to meet here. And that's how we got here. Why are you here? Maria and her lover tried to flee quickly, but couldn't escape due to the presence of multiple security guards, and were forced to sit surrounded by Maria's ex-husband and relatives, the lover's ex-wife and family, and a lawyer I had called just in case. The two were interrogated intensely. They simply hung their heads and trembled. Watching this scene, my husband and I had drinks, reflecting on our lives. Where did we go wrong in raising her? She started to change during her teenage years, when she stopped coming home often. The environment in which a child grows up is so important. I don't know who she was hanging around with. True, even as adults, the environment remains crucial. While we were discussing this, we noticed Maria glancing at us, seemingly asking for help. But that wouldn't happen. My husband and I pretended not to notice and waited for the confrontation to end. Afterward, Maria, with the lawyer present, signed an agreement to pay property division. Due to her recent disappearance, she would work at a company known to her ex-husband until her complete payment. Her lover faced the same situation. After the discussion, Maria seemed to think she could still live here, but when it was explained that this was a nursing home and she couldn't stay, she screamed in protest. Her ex-husband and relatives forcibly took her away. Her lover yelled at Maria. This wasn't the deal, but he too was taken away by his ex-wife and relatives without any debate. Later, Maria worked to pay off the property division as per their agreement. It seems they work in a place with accommodations, but the dormitories are old with shared toilets. Compared to before, their living conditions are challenging. Most of their salary goes towards the property division, and they seem to have a modest diet. But this is retribution. You must reap what you sow. Meanwhile, my husband and I are enjoying a graceful life at the oceans. We feel rejuvenated since coming here. We spend more time together and have grown closer. We often interact with other residents, have made friends, smile more, and live fulfilled days. It's going to be a big problem if we get caught. You know my sister is devious and holds a grudge once she gets angry. She'd sound asleep. It's really a shame that I'm not marrying you. To hear my husband, I was surprised, because the one who came in with him was my sister Emily. I can't believe she followed us even to our honeymoon destination. I spiked the cocktail with a little thing at dinner, so we should be fine for a while. Ah, I see. Is this headache due to the drug? They were in this together. I can never forgive them for this. Because, yes, just as Emily says, I am a devious and grudge-holding type. I'm going to do this thoroughly. My name is Daisy, soon to be married and become Daisy Jackson. I've been fulfilling my days with the work I love since I got a job, 30 years old. I thought getting married was far off at this rate, but, well, that's fine too. I thought when suddenly a marriage came like a bolt from the blue. my boss introduced my partner, Michael Jackson, 2 years my senior to me. He's the son of the president of a mid-sized company that is a client of my boss and was said to be taking over the business eventually. My parents were overjoyed the moment they heard about this marriage. Normally, they hardly cared about me and rarely contacted me. However, the moment they heard this news, they started sending messages and calling almost every day. Because they urged so much, one day I took him to my parents' home. My parents were thrilled. However, there was one person making a displeased face. It was my sister, 2 years younger, Emily. Emily has always wanted anything of mine since we were little, be it birthday presents, clothes, and even boyfriends. I don't know Emily's taste in men. However, apparently anybody I'm dating looks attractive to her. She pursues him regardless of the means and finally takes him away. This time too, she adorned herself with her best clothes and makeup and said with an exceptional smile, "Nice to meet you. I'm the younger sister, Emily." Ah, here we go again, I thought. But at this time we were already engaged. Unlike before, it wouldn't be so easy to steal him away. I was so sure of it. My in-laws, who hadn't seen their son Michael interested in women until now, were truly delighted to finally see him have a partner to marry. And after registering our marriage first, we moved into a property introduced to us by my in-laws right away. It was more than enough space for a young couple. There, we started our new life, and as soon as a phase of our work was settled, we decided to have our own wedding party and honeymoon in one go. The preparation period was by no means long. Nonetheless, the plan for a much more luxurious wedding party than I had imagined was set. But on the day of the wedding party, "What are you wearing?" "Huh? Why not? Hey, Michael, it looks good on me, doesn't it?" What Emily wore was a white dress. Wearing white at the wedding is disrespectful to the bride. Nevertheless, upon seeing that, Michael said, Nice. That fluffy dress suits your slender figure well." "Right, look, Michael said so too, Big Sis. Your dress is yellow and salmon pink, right? It's your favorite color, so it's fine." "That's right. Even this corsage she chose it carefully because it's your sister's ceremony. Mother said so, as if it was only natural." "Right." Emily and my mother nod to each other. "Yeah, it's a special ceremony after all. Let's go with a smile. Smile. Whose fault is this?" I wanted to say at that moment. Emily's white dress certainly stood out at the reception. Among the guests from both sides, some looked at Emily and whispered to each other. And I was bothered by how Michael's gaze kept drifting towards Emily. That night, we were to stay at a hotel where the venue was and were set to go to Phuket for our honeymoon on the morning flight. We had a tour with a guide booked for a week at the destination. At the next morning, we hurried to the airport. On the way, I was bothered by how Michael was fiddling with his smartphone every now and then. But we were running late, so I just thought it must be work-related at that time. Somehow we managed to catch our flight and, after a few hours, arrived at our destination. We were able to have the dinner we had booked at the hotel. Somehow we made it. "Cheers," he said so, clinking glasses with me. "Cheers! Ah, this cocktail is delicious. Did you like it?" "Very much." "I'm glad. It's been busy around these days. Let's eat up and take a good rest." Saying so, while savoring the dishes that were served in sequence, I enjoyed the cocktails, which changed several times. Then, in the middle of it, the sauce from the dish splattered onto my dress. Oh no, I'll go get it cleaned off. Before it could stain, I headed to the restroom. At that moment, from the passageway, I felt like I saw a familiar figure outside the restaurant. Emily? No, that couldn't be. There's no way she would follow me here, I reassured myself. When I exited the restroom, the figure was already gone. Oh, maybe it was just a mistake, I convinced myself for the time being. Sorry for the wait. Oh, the next cocktail arrived while I was waiting. Oh, speaking of which, something with a different color was placed there. Sorry for taking so long. It's okay. At that time, I didn't mention to him that there seemed to be a woman who looked like Emily. When we returned to the room, perhaps due to the lingering fatigue, coupled with fullness, sleepiness hit me hard. Hey, are you going to sleep already? I'm sorry, I'm so sleepy. Well, it's fine. I'll go check out the store for a bit. Without really responding, I crawled into bed and fell into an incredibly fast sleep. How long had I slept? I woke up when the door was forcefully opened. Michael must have returned, I thought, and tried to get up. But my head was pounding, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. I might be coming down with a real cold, I thought. I gave up on getting up, just as I thought about sleeping again. Hey, are you sure this is okay? Yeah, it's fine. Someone came in with Michael, and it was a woman. But look, Big Sis is sleeping there, isn't she? It will be a big problem if we get caught. Look, Big Sis is vindictive. Once she gets angry, she holds a grudge. What? This voice calling Big Sis. Emily? So the sight from that time wasn't mistaken. She's fast asleep. I put a little something in her dinner cocktail, so we should be safe for a while. Wow, Michael, you're bad. Well then, let's make the most of it. It's really unfortunate that it's not you I'm marrying. Me too, so let's hurry up and have a baby. Following those words, there is the rustling sound of fabric falling. So this headache is because of the drug. The cocktails that were switched a few times. When I left my seat, he must have put something in them. As I think that, my anger toward the two, who are increasingly getting heated up on the bed beside me, swells. I can't forgive these two anymore. Curled up in the bed, unseen by the two, I quietly reach out and take my smartphone. However, capturing the video will undoubtedly be difficult, so I hold up the smartphone to properly record their voices and consider what to do later on. If I clumsily show signs of waking up, Emily, sensitive to my presence, will surely panic and run away. Before long, perhaps the two of them are satisfied. They get off the bed and head for the bath. Taking advantage of this opportunity, I photographed the disheveled bed and the two's clothes, and then dive back into the bed. By and by, the two of them come out, and they started to put on their strewn clothes. That was quick, I thought. Hey, what are we going to do after this? I wanted to play in the bath more. Well, don't say that, Daisy was saying. It's a guided package tour. If we don't make it in time for the scheduled time, we won't be able to go sightseeing. So today the guide will call me the bride. I'm so happy. Yeah, that's right. I'm also happy, Emily. Today's plan was to use a taxi to visit various tourist attractions in the morning. If that's the case, they should return in the evening, since watching the sunset on the coast was also supposed to be in the course. If so, I, who had been pretending to sleep under the bed until the two left, immediately sprang up when I heard the sound of the door closing. My headache subsided as I was astonished by the disarray of the two. The light coming in through the window indicated it was still in the morning. Thinking this might work, I reserved the earliest flight to Chicago on my smartphone. I closed the suitcase, which I had only opened and not unpacked. Then, his passport, left on the table, caught my eye. Grinning, I slipped it into my handbag. Somehow, I boarded the 1 p.m. flight and arrived in Chicago. When I checked my smartphone, there were a terrifying number of calls and Facebook Messenger histories. Resignedly, I returned the call. "Where are you?" I instinctively pulled my smartphone away from my ear due to his overly loud voice. "Hey, I thought something was up because the suitcase was gone, but you checked out alone? What are you thinking?" "Ah, sorry, I'm in Chicago now." "Chicago?" "I remember something I have to do for work. You're still over there, right?" "Mm-hmm, of course. It's a 1-week tour. I'll have a blast even by myself." "By myself. I see. Take your time then." With that, I ended the call. Now what's next? A week passed in the blink of an eye. Just as I thought it was about time, suddenly a large number of calls flooded my smartphone again. Initially, I ignored it and only answered after a decent number of messages had accumulated. "Hello? Hey, Daisy, you don't know where my passport is, do you?" "Passport? What are you talking about?" "Well, I can't remember where I put it." "Why would I know that? Try remembering and searching where you put it on the first day. If not, just reissue it already." "What the heck? You really don't know?" "Why would you think I know?" That stumped Michael. "Well, in reality, I was the one who took it, but that's not something I can just casually admit when asked. I'm not lying. If you proceed with reissuing or whatever, you can come back, right?" "Reissuing it? Okay, I'll sort it out right away." I didn't have time to entertain a conversation. I was very busy at this time. There was plenty to do before that, and then a little over 10 days passed. Finally, I received a message from Michael that he had reissued his passport and was back. Ah, I could easily imagine that it was Emily who had held him back. I called our family home to ask how she had explained her outing, but they got rattled and just beat around the bush. On the scheduled day of return, while waiting at home, I heard the sound of a key turning and following conversation. "Hey, is this okay? Intruding into your newly-wed home where my sister lives." "It's fine. She's so dedicated to her work. I'm sure she's fully immersed in her job even today." Huh? What's this? These shoes are... At the entrance, a vast array of shoes lined up in a row. For a two-person household, this lot was unthinkable, and Michael's voice was severely shaken by realizing it. Then, "Welcome back." I greeted the two of them with a warm smile. "Daisy, today you said you were supposed to be working." Sister?" "I never said I was working. I just said I had things to do, though. I knew you'd come back together. I was waiting. Come on in." That's right. That's right. Come on in quickly." "Dad, even Mom?" Next came the in-laws. Emily gasped and gazed at the multitude of shoes. "Sister, don't tell me." "Exactly what you're thinking. Our parents are all here, too." With that, I led the two to the living room where everyone was gathered. What's with this number of people? Yes, it was not just the parents of both sides who were there. What, Section 2? That was quite an unauthorized absence, Emily. Michael, why didn't you submit a request to extend your vacation? That is, Michael and Emily's respective direct bosses were also there. I was surprised to hear it. Neither of you contacted the company. Oh no, my smartphone was broken. That's right, he dropped it in the ocean. Oh, really? You know it so well, huh? Were you there at the beach together? I smiled sweetly at the two of them. Hey, Daisy, what's with that tone? It sounds like you've been suspecting your sister from the start. Not sounding like I'm suspecting. No, I came today to make things clear. Various things. Isn't that right? Yes. The person holding the documents explained that he was a lawyer, offering his business cards to Michael, Emily, and both sets of parents. A lawyer? What on earth? There are two requests from these individuals. One was from Daisy concerning a divorce matter, and another from Michael regarding your renunciation of inheritance, sir. What, renunciation of inheritance? Michael's eyes wandered between the lawyer, me, and my in-laws. Then Emily forcefully questioned, "Wait, Mr. Lawyer, by renunciation of inheritance, do you mean Michael can't become the president?" President? Ha ha ha! My father-in-law laughed heartily and, urging the two and asked with a "Well, sit down for now," he spat out incredulously. President? Far from it. This guy is getting kicked out of the head office. Don't you get it? What a naive, clueless little lady. Well, why would you do that? Isn't it obvious? Taking advantage of his newly wife's sudden absence to go on a trip just like that with her sister? What happens to the company and its employees if a guy who does such outrageous things so carelessly, and even gets caught, becomes the top of the company? What? Isn't it okay for the president to just be there? Huh, you're really an idiot, aren't you? Are you really Daisy's sister? What did you say? You called me an idiot. Dad, Mom. Mr. Jackson, no matter what, that way of speaking is... Huh? Are you going to shield this sister, who tries to snatch her sister's husband without even scolding her? Ah, no. It's just that Daisy was an unstable woman for him. These two seem to be in love, so if anything, let's swap Daisy and Emily. Bang! The father-in-law hit the table hard. I see. This unreasonable sister came out of parents like you, didn't she? Meanwhile, the mother-in-law gestured for me to come to her side. What's wrong with it? It's not fair that only my sister gets good marriage proposals. So I asked him out, even though he's a bit old. I want to be the president's wife. Oh man. Michael was dumbfounded. You think you could become the president's wife? Why did you think that? To begin with, there was never any particular guarantee that Michael would become president. But Michael said so. He said being president is just a figurehead. Even just being there, the people around you will do the work for you. Can't leave a company to a guy who says that. It was because he had stabbed a woman like Daisy that it even worked out in the first place. Oh, since he left Daisy alone, it was my mistake. The father-in-law signaled me. I played back the words of the two of them that I had recorded at that time. Surprised, the two of them widened their eyes dramatically. You are awake? Who knows? More importantly, what on earth did she put in my cocktail? When I woke up, my head was pounding. I read it in the novel. I'm so disgusted. I'm at loss for words. The father-in-law sighed deeply. Father, what are you going to do with me? I would like to completely cut ties with a guy like you. But if I throw you out carelessly, you might spread things that will tarnish our company's reputation. Go to a regional field office. What? After saying that, Michael turned to Emily pleadingly. Hey, Emily, you'll come with me, right? What? What are you thinking about? I only considered it because you said you were the heir to the CEO, thinking it was too good for my sister. I don't want this. Return it to my sister, I guess. Even if you return him, it's annoying. With that, I presented the divorce form to both of them. What's this? There's no way I'm accepting this. At least we accept it. Dad, exactly. When you married Daisy, I thought you might become a bit more mature. What on earth are you doing? It wasn't my fault. Emily tempted me. Why didn't you refuse her then? Mother-in-law sharply reprimanded her son. I'm truly sorry, Daisy. Because of this idiot son, you became a divorcee. It's alright, it's a good lesson. I'm better off focusing on my career alone. Daisy, are you abandoning me? Abandoning? I snorted in amusement. It was you who easily fell for Emily's temptation, wasn't it? She always wants and takes what's mine. I definitely don't want her hand-me-downs. Isn't that a bit too much to say, Daisy? Furthermore, I raised my voice towards my parents. I no longer wish to associate with any of you. As for Emily, I will demand compensation for damages for items taken from me so far. You saying that to your real parents. I'm just getting back what has been diverted to Emily until now. With that, I'll sever my ties with you all, I declared sharply. I am vindictive and hold grudges once I get angry. Right, Emily? You said that, didn't you? Soon after Michael was demoted from the head office to the distant field office. His thoroughness is demonstrated by even having to use his mother-in-law's last name. His salary was significantly reduced compared to before. Furthermore, a damage claim for tampering with the drink is deducted from it. My in-laws explained. The place he was transferred to is not like before where you can go to an outdoor cafe for breaks. When you go outside the office, there is only a desolate industrial area. There are only vending machines even if you want to drink coffee outdoors. Oh, Michael, if you want coffee, we'll make it for you. See, the part-time office ladies are smiling. Until now, there were no young people, regardless of gender, in this office. A man in his 30s has come here unusually, so they are really enjoying playing with him. On the other hand, the field workers called him daily in loud voices that you wouldn't usually hear in the city, like, "What is this direction? The numbers are wrong. Hey, is the material order coming? It won't be in time," and so on. Every day, winning emails are delivered to his parents. He also sends me emails with nonsensical things like, "Please forgive me. That was a moment of madness. Meditate with my parents. I can't give up on you yet." For some reason, he didn't call directly. Probably direct rebuttals are now unpleasant for him. On the other hand, Emily was fired. The period she spent abroad with Michael was way too long, and after all, the reason is the reason. Emily, unable to find her next job and shuttling herself in her parents' home, seems to spend her days verbally abusing them, repeatedly asking, "Why didn't you stop me?" Her invectives were directed at me as well. "Why, even though you're my old sister, do you do such horrible things to me? In the end, I was the one who saw he was no good, wasn't I? You should be thanking me. So, no compensation, okay?" My parents, for their part, recently have been leaving voicemails and sending emails like this. "Please, could you reduce Emily's compensation a bit? You're her older sister, please. Why are you so stubborn? With that twisted personality, you will never get married again." And so on. Of course, I have diligently saved all their calls and emails, and with that as evidence, I had a lawyer issue a restraining order. I felt incredibly refreshed. Soon after, I changed job to the company run by my former father-in-law, not to the main office where Michael was, but to a newly established branch. Former father-in-law, I've always thought that your passion for work, Miss Daisy, was wonderful. I want you to utilize your talent as a starting member of the bunch. My former father-in-law said so, recognizing my talent for work and placing me in an important position. It seems like he thought that my abilities had not been fully utilized at my previous company. Thanks to this, I spend my days busy, but I'm enjoying every fulfilling moment. And on days off, I am treated to delicious homemade dishes by my former mother-in-law. Even though the ties with Michael have been cut, we want you, Daisy, to remain our daughter. I always wanted a daughter. Hey, Emily, would you consider becoming our adopted daughter? My real parents always favored my sister more, barely paying any attention to me. Considering that, being taught as much by my former mother-in-law is quite heartening. I don't know if I will really go through with it, but at least I think I can live more happily than before. Stop! Don't come in. Don't you know the term, living within your means? Don't you think it's such a waste for just two people to live in this house? From today, we'll live here for you. If you don't want to live with us, you can leave. Oh, but you'll still have to pay. We're going through a tough time right now. Families should look out for one another, right? With that, Margaret patted my shoulder. I looked at her with utter disdain. I am Sarah, 28 years old. I've always loved to study and enjoyed learning new things. I got into a prestigious high school in my hometown and was living a happy life. However, during my third year of junior high, on a snowy day, a car accident took both of my parents away from me. I had to arrange their funeral, and after all the procedures that I had to outsource since I was too young to know anything, there wasn't much insurance money left. With no relatives to turn to, I was advised to go to a facility. But I learned that I could only stay there for about 3 years, so I started looking for live-in jobs. The jobs available for junior high graduates who needed lodging were limited. Still, I was able to get a job at an inn that offered accommodation. They strictly taught me the basics and the customer service skills. The seniors and the madam were strict yet kind to me, even though I knew nothing. The boss's daughter became attached to me, and we spent our days like family. 10 years later, I was handling my job well and had saved up quite a bit of money. I had a dream. I worked hard to achieve it. I was praised by the madam for my excellent skills, and I was put in charge of serving customers. I met Ken when I served him while he was being somewhat nervous. Drawn to his gentle and polite demeanor, we dated for a year before deciding to get married. But getting married was not straightforward. I thought there might be a chance his family would object. It would be disappointing, but understandable. Considering my background, The long-established family business he had might dispute our marriage. But the reality was 100 times more malicious than I imagined. A middle school dropout. Not particularly impressive. Those were the first words the sister-in-law said to me when we first met. Shocked, I dropped my bag and made a loud noise. "Hey, what are you saying, sis?" Ken retorted, but this was just the beginning. "I heard you dropped out of middle school and don't have parents." Those words did not even have a hint of kindness nor comfort. It was just plainly cold and condescending. Not to boast, but everyone in our family graduated from a decent university. "I don't want blood of a middle school dropout in our family." I looked at Ken in disbelief, but he didn't seem like he was going to defend me. "If you had no parents, you probably don't know the proper way to cook nor to do laundry, right?" "We also deal with our family business. Our children can handle it, but I wonder if our family is too much for a middle school dropout like you." I could hear the sister-in-law's scornful laughter from behind. After their barrage of insults, there was a moment of silence before I was about to retaliate. But Ken spoke up first. "Dad, Mom, please stop. I'm sure she didn't finish school and isn't extremely pretty, but she works and knows how to do basic things, since she works at an inn. Being older, she can cook fairly well and handle household chores. Didn't I explain where she works? The inn's owner likes her, and she is essential for our family business. Don't you remember?" He then squeezed my hand and silently assured me it was going to be okay. But I felt something was off. It sounded as if he was marrying me because the inn's owner liked me. After those harsh words from his parents, I was numb. I had the illusion that Ken was on my side and we could be happy together. I wanted to get their approval before getting married. Ken said we could just ask the inn's owner to vouch for us. So I asked the owner to call Ken's family. Apparently, his parents are weak to powerful people. After the owner's call, they immediately approved our marriage. I remember being shocked by their sudden change of heart. My best friend was concerned and asked if I was sure about the marriage. "I've always seen you work hard. I think of you like a sister, and I want you to be happy." Emily, who was the same age as Ken and had known him for a long time, worried I might be deceived as her image of Ken didn't match mine. After our marriage, Ken and I lived happily together for a while. He enjoyed my cooking, and we often expressed gratitude to each other, creating warm moments. I continued working at the inn, and occasionally helped at the family business. Life was good. But then my mother-in-law fell down the stairs and fractured a bone. Given our previous interactions, I tried to minimize contact with Ken's family. With a sister-in-law living with them, I didn't take this incident too seriously. But then Ken proposed something outrageous. "Mom broke her bone, right? I think this is a good opportunity for us to live together." One day Ken suddenly told me this after returning from work. We had never discussed living with his family before. Being told something like that all of a sudden is troubling. After all, there are lease renewals of this apartment, and I have a job too. Your sister already lives there. I could maybe help by visiting. As I was suggesting alternatives, while feeling perplexed, a sudden loud noise made me stiffen. It was the sound of Ken slamming the table. "What? I'm the eldest son. Do you think I could just leave everything to others?" Ken, who was always gentle and calm, seemed like a completely different person, and I was completely stunned. "No, that's not it." "Isn't it? I took in an orphan like you. We even faced opposition to our marriage. Don't you think you should contribute a little? I wouldn't ask to be buttered up or anything, but maybe your thinking doesn't go that far because you only graduated from middle school?" I couldn't say anything in response to Ken's unusual demeanor. He seemed like a complete thug. I was probably trembling, but then Ken hugged me as he always did. Normally such moments would make me happy. However, at that time, all I felt was fear. "Sorry for speaking so harshly. I got irritated because you were a bit clueless. It's your fault, but if you do as I say, everything will be fine. You must feel anxious, so let's just try this arrangement until my mom recovers." He acted as if he was compromising and being gentle, and this slowly ate into me. I decided to help out, thinking it would put me in a position to be appreciated and potentially improve my relationship with Ken's family. By the end of the month, I managed to organize our belongings, handle administrative procedures while working, and finally moved. On the day I moved to my in-laws' home, the words my mother-in-law told me were enough to break my heart. "Just because you're helping out doesn't mean your status will change. Remember, you're a disgraceful middle school graduate and are at the lowest position in this household. Naturally, you'll be the last to take a bath." I stood frozen in place, cold sweat dripping down my back, barely able to breathe. My ability to breathe grew even more strained each day living with my in-laws. Though I felt fine at work, at home I struggled to breathe and felt suffocated. I was unable to smile naturally and started to make many mistakes at work. Emily was concerned for me. Despite her deep concern, I had no choice but to say, "I'm fine," feeling guilty for pushing through with the marriage. But sleepless nights from stress took a toll on my health. Because I didn't want to cause trouble for anyone, I resigned from my job, saying I had to take care of my mother-in-law. I should have said a proper goodbye, but I had no energy to even leave the house. And so began my days of doing household chores and being insulted. "How many times do I have to tell you? The food is too salty. Do you want to make us sick? You can't even cook properly." "I thought it tasted fine, but maybe I just got used to it. You're lucky, Sarah, to learn cooking from Mom." "Your cleaning is always up perfect." "So much for marrying a maid, right?" Ken's hurtful words grew worse over time, but once kind-hearted Ken was nowhere to be found. Though it was supposed to be temporary, living with the in-laws showed no signs of ending. My mother-in-law energetically went out to enjoy hula dancing. Ken began referring to me as plain and dark and started to bar hop, saying he felt suffocated at home. One day, dressed more glamorously and wearing heavy makeup than usual, she said, "I will be coming home tonight." My sister-in-law, Jessica, almost 31. Recently, she's been active in going to matchmaking events. She used to be sarcastic about my marriage, but her mood improved, likely due to finding someone, and her results lessened. Since Noah was home, I decided to take a long bath. It was much more relaxing than when I took a shower last. I was enjoying a rare moment of peace when suddenly the bathroom door slammed open. I found Jessica standing there. It can be seen in an instant her date was a disaster. "Get out, slowpoke," she yelled, pulling me out of the tub. She forced me, naked, outside the bathroom, throwing my clothes at my face. Then my father-in-law was also home. When I realized the gravity of the situation, it was too late. Robert was standing right behind me. Robert looked me up and down. "What's this? I thought it would be a nice view, but my useless daughter-in-law is just a bony old hag. No wonder Ken doesn't stay at home." Filled with shame, anger, and a mix of emotions, I rushed into my room. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. Lately, due to stress and being so busy, I haven't been eating properly. I knew that, but I looked like a skeleton, with dry hair, with no expression. Looking at my reflection, I quietly cried for the first time since moving in to my in-laws. I must have cried for about an hour before Ken came home. "Whoa, you scared me. I thought you were some kind of a weeping ghost." After he left, I told him about what had happened earlier. "Seriously? That's hilarious. Even my dad made fun of you." He just laughed it off. Something inside me snapped. Why am I putting up with this? What have these past few years been for? I vowed in my heart to take revenge on my laughing husband. Just then, Emily called. I hadn't been out for a while, so when I tried on my clothes, I noticed I lost so much weight that my pants no longer fit. I decided to wear a dress that Ken chose for me. The moment Emily saw me, she hugged me, crying, "I should have come to see you. even if you didn't want me to." She comforted me with her kind words and said she has something important to tell me, so she booked a private room. What Emily shared was astonishing, but to me it felt like I had gained a weapon for my revenge. I told Emily everything, what had happened recently and what I wanted to do next. "I'll support you in any way I can. There are many that will do the same. We're going to get your happiness back." Hearing this, I couldn't help but genuinely smile. When was the last time I had smiled like this? It felt so good. It made me cry. After returning home, I did the usual chores. Margaret complained as always, but it didn't bother me. I told Ken we needed to talk. He seemed very reluctant. I showed him some pictures. He looked genuinely shaken, but then started to ramble. "I just played around with someone I met while going out with friends. My wife is uneducated, clumsy, older, and can't manage the house properly. Never smiles either. I hated being at home." "So it's my fault?" "Yes, that's right. I had no choice." "Fine, let's divorce then. We'll have to apologize to the president who's been like a parent to me. He even acted as a matchmaker for us. You'll pay compensation, split the assets, and I'll seek compensation from this woman too." Staring at me as if I was an alien, he shouted, "You think you can suddenly act all high and mighty?" and struck me. He must have realized he had gone too far. "I have all this in recording. I'm done with you. If you don't want a divorce, then we'll stop living together. I'll leave by Saturday." Given that the majority of his family business's profits came from the inn that were made by the president that was looking out for me, Ken had no escape. I was already packed. To avoid any issues moving out, I made Ken inform his family that I was leaving that day. As expected, they sat at the breakfast table all waiting to be served. Looking at the three of them, I couldn't stop my grin. "I want to end this living arrangement. It was Sarah who made breakfast for me. You should have been more grateful." Everyone started to hurl insults. "Enough. We are leaving. It's important. Everyone should take care of their own matters. Let's go, Sarah," he said, pulling my hand. For a moment I wished he had done this earlier. I shook off his hand. "We probably won't see each other again. The useless woman will be gone. Goodbye." Saying that, I walked out the door. We stayed in a hotel for a while. A few days later, Ken didn't return to the hotel. After waiting a day, I checked the corporate bank account and saw that all the money was withdrawn. Realizing Ken had fled, my hands trembled, seeing there was nothing left. A few months passed and I resumed my job at the inn. The money I had saved for my dream was untouched. Using that money, I bought a small house. It was a property I had noticed on the day I met with Emily. It reminded me of the house where I lived with my family when I was young. I wanted to restart my life here. The next day after Ken left, I called the property management company and, a few weeks later, successfully purchased the house. One holiday while in the garden, I heard a familiar voice. "Sarah, it's good to see you're doing well." The ones who entered the premises were my former in-laws, all three of them. "What are you all doing here?" I spoke coldly, and the three of them seemed surprised, but their arrogant attitude didn't change. "This is a pretty good house. We heard you got a new place, so we decided to visit. We went to the inn first, but it was closed. Where's Ken?" As speaking, he opened the door and went in. "Hey, stop! You're not welcome." "Isn't this house too big for just the two of you? It's such a waste. We'll move in for you starting today. If you don't want to live with us, then you should leave. Oh, but you'll still have to pay for everything. You were poor from the beginning. You can live anywhere, right? We're in a tough spot right now. Families should look after one another. Don't you think?" I glared at my former mother-in-law with contempt. These people didn't see how rude they are. They ignored me stopping them and just kept going inside. But there's no way they can barge into my life again. Well, I did want to help, if you still were my family. At that moment, the sound of sirens reached our ears. It was the police. "I called the police. How dare you barge into someone's home? Sarah, get away from them. It's dangerous. Who are these people anyway?" The voice shouting from the luxurious stairs was Emily's. This was Emily's house. It's true that I bought a new house nearby, but today I was visiting Emily. Amidst the sirens, the former in-laws seemed unable to understand what's happening. What do you mean by if you were still my family? Don't you know Ken and I are divorced? And the family business you were so proud of collapsed because Ken ran away with all the money. Didn't you know any of this? Too bad you didn't. Maybe this was just too much happening even for a college graduate to understand, I said with a smile, watching my ex-in-laws' pale faces. Emily continued her impressive act. Huh? Are you the family of Sarah's ex-husband? You followed her all the way here? That's scary. The police rushed in just as Emily exclaimed loudly. Officer, these people seem to be stalking her and entered our house without permission. Emily shouted from her room with wide open windows. Her voice and the sirens drew a crowd, including neighbors. The in-laws were well known in the neighboring town as they had been in business for generations. Many locals recognized them. Isn't that the son of that shop owner? That's what an old man said, and everyone looked at Robert. Although the former father-in-law didn't understand the situation, the three of them were pushed into the police car and taken away. We might need to question you again. Having been told that by the police officer, I felt relieved watching the police car taking the former in-laws into the distance. That day, Emily and I drank until dawn. We were celebrating. Almost everything went according to plan. I had a feeling that the in-laws might show up someday. Ever since I reunited with Emily, I had a plan. I wanted to leave the in-laws' house peacefully and get Ken to sign the divorce papers. I didn't want to be tied down any more than we already were. So I told Ken that if we didn't live separately from his family, we would divorce. I said I'd submit the divorce papers on the specified day if we didn't separate. On the day we decided to separate, I showed Ken a fake divorce paper and ripped it in front of him. I had intentionally left a decent amount of money in one of the company accounts, left the bank card in a place easily found, and transferred the rest to my account. I said I didn't need the money, but Emily told me I should take it. In a way, his pathetic behavior helped my plan. Turns out the woman Ken had been cheating, saying that he was single, was Emily's friend. Emily's friend thought Ken was single, and they were talking about getting married. I didn't ask for compensation for the affair, but I lured her that she would, and when Ken saw the amount of compensation, he ran away. Surprisingly, that friend was the daughter of the CEO of the company where the former sister-in-law worked. Even in a relatively large town, you should assume you're always connected with someone close by. It's probably a countryside thing. The sister-in-law didn't know about Ken's affair, but suspicion fell on her. The company did a background check, and it was found that she had forcibly invited young male employees to dinner and had been harassing them, so she was urged to resign voluntarily. The father-in-law was also receiving some of the profits from the family business as a salary for a management position in name only. But since Ken ran away with the company money, the money stopped coming in, which brought the current situation to the family. Later on, the three of them were released after spending about 2 days in detention because they mistakenly trespassed, but it was their first time, and no one got injured. However, it was unlikely that they could maintain living in the large house they had been living in, so they are now living in a small rundown apartment, constantly fighting. Even though all of them had higher education, the 65-year-old former father-in-law, the 60-year-old former mother-in-law that has never had a job before, and the former sister-in-law who was effectively fired for harassment didn't have great job prospects. And since they had been so arrogant, they had no friends to help them. Ken was also found by the CEO, who was furious about his daughter being deceived. He was put on a fishing boat to work and pay the compensation. After that, I've been living freely in this small house. I don't feel suffocated anymore. I don't think I want to get married for a while. My best friend Emily, who's always concerned about me, still comes over to hang out. I want to enjoy the moments in this house with her and live a peaceful life. The miserable and regrettable times and the times filled with hatred are over. I felt a gentle breeze brushing against my cheek. I'm here. I naturally turned towards the voice and smiled. My dream is to create a place where my family could always be happy. Now, I want to keep moving forward and live without forgetting to smile. Starting from today, my wife and our kids will live here with us. Please prepare the bath after dinner. Suddenly, our son, who returned home, is cheerfully talking about moving in, laughing, carrying a large luggage, and, without any notice, the son whom we haven't seen in years has arrived. No matter what, it's too sudden. Shouldn't he have discussed it with us first? When telling so to our son, he glared at us, with an obviously displeased look on his face. Isn't it the best gift for you guys, having my wife and our kids back home here? Only terrible parents would take it really negatively like that. My name is Emily. After my son went to university, my husband, John, and I moved to the countryside, and it's been almost 10 years. Before I knew it, I've reached 50. When we were in the city, I worked hard every day, got married, and managed work while raising our son. My husband was a system engineer at where I worked, and he later became independent and has been involved in managing a small online shopping site with his friends. The ability to work from home gave a boost to our move to the countryside. However, our busy city life has entirely become a thing of the past. Now, while living leisurely, just the two of us, I work part-time at a nearby shop to contribute to our living expenses. One day I received a phone call from our son, Tom. Actually, I need a bit of financial help. It's for our kids, various expenses. He started off with that, and I unintentionally responded, Huh? After graduation, Tom married a woman named Catherine, whom he had been dating since he was a college student, and they had a child. We didn't really question further since he was employed, and it was their own decision, but we wondered which came first, the engagement or the child. Now Tom's family is lively with 3 kids. We received cute photos of our grandkids, but Tom never brought the kids home, saying it would be better if we, who are financially comfortable, visited them in the city. To begin with, he's hardly come home since we moved to the countryside. When he was a student, he was busy with the university and couldn't take days off from his part-time job. After working full-time, he hardly had any days off, many things to remember at work, and was also too tired to come back. Once the kids were born, the countryside is far, childcare is busy, they're still small. The excuses were endless. We have time, so it's okay. But Tom has 3 kids to look after, so gradually we gave up on the idea of him coming home at all. After all, whenever we tried to visit, Tom found some reason to avoid that topic. Realizing he no longer wanted to meet us, we gave up, accepting that our son has his own life. Thus, it's been years since we last saw him, but now, out of the blue, he calls up asking for money. Various expenses. Sure, they must be a lot, but what exactly is going on? We can't just hand over money like that. What are they exactly for, and how much? Huh? Well, whatever. People need money to live. The more money, the better. It's always needed for something. Maybe something bad happened? I tried to ask him for the details, but Tom just brushed it off with his usual unserious laugh. Is this really about money for the kids? I felt my long-time motherly instincts kick in. Come on, our wedding. It was fun, right? Besides, you guys helped out with Catherine's hospital fees sometimes, right? And just like that. The hospital fees were because after your lavish wedding and honeymoon, you guys had run out of your savings, right? Even being brought up the topic of the wedding now, only bitter memories resurface. Tom is just like Tom, and his wife Catherine is no different. At the time, since she was pregnant, she couldn't fly, but if that hadn't been the case, they'd likely have insisted on an overseas wedding. They splurged on a nice place domestically for the honeymoon, given that overseas was not an option. We cheerfully gifted them because it was a new beginning. Never did we imagine that after claiming they had no savings, we'd end up covering hospital expenses for Catherine to deliver their babies. It seems that the wedding expenses were more than we imagined. Yet many of the photos that are being sent show scenic views that seem to be from travel destinations and beautiful hotels. Tom always came to us saying, "I can't tell our parents-in-law about this." Even the third time, he was severely scolded by my husband due to his lack of planning and not thinking about the baby's future. We can't ignore the hospital fees, so it couldn't be helped. But this is different, isn't it? Now that you're parents, you should focus on raising your kids and earn a stable income. Please, don't rely on others so quickly. Start by reviewing your own household finances. Tom, being 5 years into his career, should be receiving a proper salary. Before asking for help, he should be able to get back on his feet, I thought, and pushed them away. However, on the other end of the phone, Tom just complained. "What the heck? We're talking about your grandkids. Besides, I have 3 kids. You could at least help out a bit. I'm having a tough time too." He ranted loudly. Before we knew it, the call was cut off. I hesitated to tell my husband, but thinking that he should be aware that Tom is struggling with money, I decided to bring it up at dinner. "Well, even though he says it's tough, there must be some circumstances. It's troubling that they're not trying to be independent, but with 3 kids and both Tom and Catherine working hard, shouldn't we support them a bit?" With that said by my husband, we pondered a bit about what to do with our savings. However, 1 week after Tom's call, a situation that overturned this discussion with my husband occurred. Astonishingly, Tom's entire family came to visit our house. We hadn't shown our faces yet this year, so we thought we'd come home. Tom and Catherine and their 3 young kids. They were all holding suitcases and backpacks, and that caught my husband and I completely off guard, and we quickly tidied up the room and welcomed them into our home. "You should have told us. Did you find the way okay? It's quite a distance from the station, isn't it?" "You sent us a celebration gift, right? The address was written on it, so we were able to come by taxi." While surprised, of course, having all the family return home was joyful. It was the first time since the birth of our 3rd grandchild. The grandkids were initially scared of the old country house, but they gradually got used to it and began to energetically run around and play. "Take care of us for a while. Catherine and I are going to look for jobs around here." "Huh? What do you mean by that?" My husband and I were stunned. Shockingly, Tom and Catherine had quit their jobs and planned to move in with us. The reason they had brought 3 large suitcases was that they contained their daily necessities. Moreover, their previous home was company housing, so they had to vacate upon resigning, and their belongings would be delivered to our house the next day. What was even more astonishing was that Catherine was smiling as Tom spoke. She wasn't being forced to come, and she had willingly come here with the family. "The city has bad air and cramped houses, but in the countryside prices are lower, and since you 2 are here, we can both work. It's better for the kids to have a spacious house to run around in. There probably aren't any waiting lists for childcare here either." While we were left speechless, Tom, unfazed, continued to eat his dinner heartily. While it's referred to as the countryside, it's not exactly in the middle of nowhere. There aren't many places to play, but a 30-minute drive can get you everything you need for daily life. Nonetheless, we were so surprised that Tom and his family had moved without any prior discussion. I remembered the phone call from the other day. It seemed they were struggling with city life and took extreme measures to save money. When I pressed them about getting new jobs, both Tom and Catherine confidently declared, "Of course." Yet their smirks and giggles gave off a suspicious vibe about their intentions. "What will you do about the kids?" "We're living with you 2, right? Nowadays it's common for grandparents to help out, so both the parents can work." Catherine had been trying hard all by herself since we have 3 kids. You've probably been neglecting to help with the grandkids." Astonishingly, Catherine, sitting next to him, nodded in agreement and said, "We've always talked about how great it would be if you two could help. I could work more and you'd get the grandkids all to yourselves. It's not a bad deal for you two." It was clear from their eyes that they saw us as convenient tools to push their responsibilities onto us. This was totally unacceptable. My husband seemed to realize that supporting our son and his family was a mistake. We decided to firmly distance ourselves from them. "We have our own lives to live. It's too sudden for you to demand money and then just show up without discussing it first. It's very inconvenient for us." However, Tom smirked and glared at us. "You should be happy to live with me and your grandkids, right? You've always wanted to see us. If you say things like that, we'll leave. But are you okay with never seeing your grandkids again?" Never? I was taken aback by his harsh words and inadvertently asked back. "I mean, there's no other reason for us to come to this countryside other than for money. I thought you'd be pleased. It's unbelievable that parents would abandon even their grandkids for money." The couple was trying to force their way to live here at any cost. We had reached our limit with how they acted towards us. Once again, we firmly told them to leave. They frowned and glared at us even more intensely. "I will seriously never let you see the kids again. You two had abandoned us." Tom finally stated that he would cut off ties with us if we didn't accept them here. He will never visit again and will never let the grandkids see us again. Furthermore, he won't send photos either. Instead of being surprised, we were enraged at what Tom was saying. "Fine. Okay. After all, Tom and your family have only come back to our home." Yeah. Finally getting through, huh?" "Then we'll go back to our home too." "What?" Saying this, Tom's eyes widened in surprise. I told my husband to pack our bags and retreated to our bedroom. Although my husband was puzzled, we quickly packed our clothes into 2 suitcases. Thank goodness that there were no issues with my husband's work, since he could work with just 1 laptop. "We're giving you this house. We're going back to our parents' house, so we can't look after the grandkids." Holding 1 suitcase each, we told them this in the living room. Tom looked back at us, looking confused, not fully understanding the situation. "Your furniture is coming too, right? Having ours might be in the way, so I'll arrange for ours to be picked up quickly." Hearing this, Tom finally seemed to understand that he could get this house for free, and his smile returned. "Oh, if that's the plan, then things are easy. Having a house is great. It really helps out." "Let me know when the moving company is coming. I'll help too." Catherine also seemed overjoyed. With heavy hearts, the next morning, we left the house we had lived in for 10 years, as if being driven out by Tom and his wife. There was hardly any time to eat breakfast. Then I first explained the situation to my part-time job, and somehow arranged to quit that day. The manager and I were close, and perhaps because I had often talked about Tom's impulsiveness, the talk was wrapped up smoothly. "You barely had breakfast, did you? Regardless of him being someone else's son, what a thing to do to your own parents." The manager was indignant, as if it were his own affair, and even gave us a farewell gift. Next, I contacted my parents' house. Given the circumstances with Tom, I had no intention to impose suddenly and planned to head there after staying a few days in a hotel. However, his misdeeds were well known to my parents too, so we were welcomed to their home immediately. Furthermore, my parents themselves managed to arrange for a company to collect the furniture through their contacts. Saying we would slowly dispose of things stored in a rental storage, my parents also arranged all that, enabling my husband and I to rest. The next day, Tom and his family moved their furniture into the house happily. and all the food and other items were disposed of by the professionals. However, when their furniture was delivered, it seemed like they had chosen the cheapest moving service, so the movers just dropped off the items and left. Tom tried to order our movers to carry the furniture, but of course, setting up furniture was not their job, so they quickly left after their job was done. Hearing them yelling at the movers gave us another headache, but their terrible behaviors didn't stop. Just 3 days later, we received a call from Tom. "Hey, something's wrong with this house." His voice sounded like a child throwing a tantrum and saying that they practically can't live there and begging for help, that I couldn't help but laugh. After all, we had lived in that rather old house for 10 years. Now, years later, and with all the large furniture removed, the countryside house, much larger than the one Tom's family had been living in, must have been especially challenging for them. With their furniture not filling the space, there must have been huge temperature differences throughout the house. More than anything, what must have been hard for our city-bred son was dealing with the numerous ants, spiders, centipedes, and geckos. It's a house in the countryside after all. It's close to fields and woods, so of course there are insects, and even mice might appear if you don't set traps during certain seasons. "Why didn't you tell me all this earlier? How can we live in this dirty and dangerous house?" Have you been leaving windows open with just the screen door, like in the city? Have you been leaving the trash out? Do you have any insect repellent? Did you get rid of cardboard boxes immediately? If you don't want to see bugs in the countryside, you have to do at least that much. We invited you to visit our countryside home many times after making sure to take such measures, didn't we? A woman's scream, presumably Catherine's, can be heard from the other end of the phone. There's a huge fuss, with her yelling, "A lizard! A lizard!" Given the volume of her screams, the lizard is probably more startled than her and will quickly flee. "Just come back already. We can't even sleep or wake up in peace, let alone do housework. It's your house, so you should do pest control. If you can't do that, then rebuild the house to a new one or something." Once again, Tom has said something outrageous. However, we no longer have any attachment to that house. If you want to leave, please feel free to do so. It's your house now, so do as you wish. I immediately hung up the phone. In order to teach him a lesson, both my husband and I set Tom's number to be blocked for incoming calls. I let out a sigh of relief in the spacious living room of the apartment. Actually, the home we went back to wasn't our childhood home, but it was our parents' final home. The home we bought wasn't brand new, but thanks to our parents' meticulous cleaning, it felt like it was new and as comforting as that home we used to live in, making it a very cozy place to live. We had planned to live together with our parents and take care of them, so there were more rooms than we needed. Although we had to move earlier than expected, our parents were genuinely happy, so we decided to gratefully accept their offer. Later, I found out from the manager of my part-time job that I used to work at that Tom's family had moved. It seems that country life was too much for them after all. They probably returned to the city and are now looking for work. After confirming that the house was empty with no furniture, we demolished it without any hesitation. We also sold the land, completely cutting ties with the place filled with 10 years of memories. Nearly half a year later had passed since the demolition, and a few months later, when the manager happened to pass by the area, he coincidentally saw Tom's family visiting. Wanting to say something, they approached the manager. "What happened to the house that was here?" Standing in front of a sign that read "Land for Sale," Tom seemed at a loss for words, and looked quite flustered. The manager explained the general situation. It seemed Tom had hoped to mooch off us again, thinking we might not be able to kick them out if they came back with the whole family once again. But to his surprise, even the house was no longer there. "As you can see, after the previous residents moved out, the land was sold. Are you thinking of buying this land? With kids, maybe you're considering building a brand new house? No, we aren't. You're quite ambitious for someone so young. That's good. Shall I contact the landowner for you? Tom, with a pale face, quickly left, dragging along his angry wife and their kids. Meanwhile, we were living peacefully with our parents. They have no health issues and spend their days walking, attending classes, and living an ideal retirement life. There are no issues between my husband and my parents either. On weekends, he and my father go fishing together. I realized that I prefer working outside, so I began looking for a new part-time job. Hearing from the manager that Tom had visited made me feel a bit sorry for him, but the ones I feel most sorry for are his kids, who are caught up in all this. Just to be sure, I've informed Catherine's parents about the situation in detail. They've kindly offered to take in and protect the grandkids if necessary. Perhaps we made mistakes in raising our child, but he and his wife are adults now. It was Tom who threatened to cut ties with us. In any case, they need to be independent before we can start any discussion between us. Considering they had the audacity to return to where the house once stood, we believe they haven't reflected on their actions. So that's why we're still cutting off contact with them.